the Warm Audio WA-MPX single channel tube mic preamp. Crank that gain up. Oh, that sounds great. This is a totally authentic reproduction of a vintage Ampex 351 tube preamp from the 60s, which was such a part of the sound of early rock and roll. Elvis, Bing Crosby, Les Paul, they all would go through an Ampex 351 before it hit the tape. The thing I love about this preamp is not only the tone that it gives you, but also the control and customizability of that tone. It's not built for like a thing. It's built for so many different things. You can be clean and pristine or throw on some tape saturation and make it so gritty. It takes up 2 rack units and it's a steel chassis with an aluminum face. Really great look, and these knobs look vintage. They feel solid too. Same with the switches. Like, these are not cheap knobs and switches. Illuminated VU meter. It's like that old look. Inside the preamp are 3 discrete tubes. There are 2 12AX7 tubes and 1 12AU7 tube, each chosen for a specific purpose, for a specific sound that Warm Audio was replicating. And the custom wound large core Cinemag USA transformers give it that really nice color on the preamp gain. Okay, the front has so many switches and knobs. Let's go through them very briefly just to give a rundown of what they all do and to hear the colors and sound differences that this preamp can give you. On the very left, there's the input select, so I have it on microphone right now, but there's also line and instrument, which the input is right here. Right in the middle is the preamp gain, so the more you turn it up, the more of that tube gain you are sending into your signal. This preamp gives a total of 90 decibels of analog gain, which is way more than you would need, so it's a ton of headroom. And then to compensate, on the right, you have the output levels and not blow out everything else in your signal chain. All of it's a balance, right? If you want a lot of coloration from the tubes, you turn up this gain, but you gotta compensate by turning down the output. You have to find what sits well in your ears and throughout the rest of your chain. Okay, these switches over here are so fun to work with. The first one up here is the, all right, phantom power. That's not as fun. I'm using this tube mic with the power supply, so I don't need phantom power, but if you have a microphone that does, there's the switch right there. This next switch is high gain, which kicks on that 3rd tube inside of the unit, and it will provide 20 extra decibels. So lower output microphones like some Dynamics or ribbon mics, you could turn that switch on. If I turn it on with this mic, suddenly it's really blown out. Sorry, interface. Next switch is polarity. It'll throw the phase out 180 degrees. So if you're using a bunch of microphones and you're having phase cancellation, flip that on. Now we get into the tone shaping switches, which are really fun. And this first one's just marked tone.
Why do you have to say tone like that?
If you want a magic switch that just does something cool, here it is. It's basically altering the input transformer to give the input more color and more punch. So if I flip this on, you could absolutely hear the difference. So, hey, Nick Marzock with full compass, off. Hey, Nick Marzock with full compass. Hey, Nick Marzock with full compass. Hey, Nick Marzock with full compass. It's definitely recommended for Dynamics and ribbons, but try it out on all kinds of mics. You might find a tone setting with all of these knobs and switches that works for your sound. Down here's a high-pass filter at 80 hertz. It'll roll off everything below that. Can't really tell right now. Then right next to it is a low-pass filter at 2 kilohertz. So it'll roll off all the frequencies above 2 kilohertz. And now there go the highs. Especially with a compressor and a vintage style microphone like this one. Now it's like an old broadcaster, see? He swings and he misses. The score is 4-2. All right, flip those both back off. Finally, there's this switch that brings the real grit, the tape saturation switch. I throw that on and now I'm ready to cut an indie record. It adds a circuit of analog components that add to the tubes to replicate tape saturation, and it adds some nice compression and harmonic distortion. So this one's a lot of fun. And using all of these together, like, you can really come up with some interesting sounds. Turning up the preamp gain all the way, turning the output down. I love this tape saturation switch. Turning off the low pass filter. I could bring the preamp gain down, turn up the output level so that there's not a lot of tube coloration happening. And this is pretty straight, very clean. So many options to customize your vocal sound, voiceover sound, or instrument sound. With this, you have to be aware of your gain because there are a lot of different gain stages here. There's the input knob, the preamp gain, the output level, high gain, tape saturation. You just have to be cognizant of your gain staging to make sure you're not blowing out the rest of your signal chain.
My gain?
This preamp also comes as a dual channel unit, so you can have stereo instruments or matched pair microphones, a mix bus go through this before it hits the interface or tape. It's really adding some sweetness to the signal chain and does a really great job at replicating that vintage sound, but at a great, great price. The WA-MPX by Warm Audio is available at full compass for $749. and the dual channel 2 MPX is $1,399. This preamp paired with a great microphone like this one is a must-have for studios of all types: home studio, mid-size studio, Rode mobile studio, especially if you're going for that warm tube preamp sound, but you don't have the budget for buying a top-end vintage unit. This is a great solution.